Debate live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a Coffee, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and X. Now we are joined by Neil, Wandek, and a whole bunch of people in the Flat Earth Debate Discord server. So welcome one and all.
Hey, good morning everyone.
Oh, good morning. Put out a little call to action in back office Skype to say, please, plenty of people, please join the G Plus live stream today because I've got toothache. So ideally, I want to be talking as little as possible. So it'd be great to have lots of support. Obviously, that means we've got 2 people in attendance in the G Plus panel, which is wonderful. Maybe if I ask a few housekeeping questions, we can get this show rolling. So, any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge? That's a horizon formerly known as Earth curvature. Hello?
Great start so far.
Yeah, thanks, Neil, and
there's no
Wandek,
curvature anywhere
my
there,
backup, my cheerleaders. Thank you so much, Wandek and Neil. Glad to have you. Any evidence of Earth curvature? Going to be a short show.
There is no Earth curvature anywhere on flat Earth, man. Nowhere to be measured, nowhere to be found. If there was, we would know by now. Somebody would show us the measurements. There is no curvature anywhere on Earth.
Curvature only exists in the math universe.
And in the minds of blind believers.
Any evidence of axial rotation? Obviously of the Earth-based variety.
I believe the ancient Greeks thought that the sun moved across the sky, not that the Earth was rotating.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
Depends on what your measurement of Venus is.
What's the view of the distance to the sun?
Yeah, because you do the parallax to Venus when it crosses the sun. Then you assign a figure to Venus, and then you make up a number for your distance to the sun.
That sounds like a load of old nonsense. Ascribing distances to Venus? So we can know the distance? No. No.
Pardon me, on that, you have a plane of reference for your calculations for this transit, don't you?
Yeah, they're flat Earth measurements. Angle measurements to Venus. We were talking about this in the pre-show. One of our anti-flat Earth counterparts is called Bacon, but he goes now by open brackets flat Earth, close brackets Bacon. And the reason he goes by this name is because he needs to utilize aspects of a flat Earth to move forward in his globe claim. So to make it easier on himself, He thinks it's acceptable to say, oh, yeah, well, I'm flat Earth bacon. Until I need to push forth the idea of being on a globe. And by then, I've already used my flat Earth abilities to measure Earth, and then I'll start talking about how Earth's a globe. No. We're measuring angles off a flat Earth. That's the end. That's the end of the example. No need to do anything. That's it. So we start this process of measurement by measuring Earth flat. And you're going to give me a ball Earth distance to the sun from that? No. No. Just no. Please share the show. So it's become glaringly apparent. The more I push for people to understand and appreciate how Earth is simply measured flat, dealt with flat, mapped flat, navigated flat, charted flat, built on flat, all of the processes that you functionally deal with Earth are flat. And the more we expose this, the more censored this channel becomes, the less people it reaches. And for whatever reason, people are more inclined to share the live show. So people are more abundant when we're going live than when it's a pre-recorded show. There's no reason for that. The pre-recorded shows have often got more in them, in not just time, but in material, for obvious reasons. But yeah, this show is just heavily suppressed. So if you're in the live stream chat now, please share the show. Typically, we're spending the majority of our time sending people to other people's videos to tell them that, admittedly, I sent them there. But that doesn't necessarily bolster the channel views. So, you know, what we offer is something that I'm sure people on the panel will agree with me. I'm hoping they will, so I can stop talking. Wanted to know Earth is flat when they came to the subject. I certainly did. I wanted to know how Earth is flat, not how Earth's not a globe. And it seems more and more obvious as I listen to other flat earthers discuss the subject that when they present it to somebody who is not familiar with the subject at all, they'd suggest that looking how Earth isn't ball-shaped is the way forward. I just think it's silly. Now, it plays into a narrative that has people arguing about the unarguable facts of Earth's measurement. There's no discussion here. There's no debate. This channel will keep the show title for its namesake. But it's reached the point where, well, it's reached a conclusion. What was the end of the debate? Well, when we found out that Earth had never changed, it always was dealt with flat. Nothing's altered. But that's what we need to peddle to people. So, where you may be of hesitant mind to share shouty debates, some of it my fault, some of it my opponent's fault, but times have changed. In 2024, what this show now offers is a concise end to the discussion. So, please share the show. It'd be nice to get the popularity up when we're in the strongest position possible. And admittedly, we're being bashed internally by people who want to punt their nonsense grift of ether. Therefore, we're scammers, periodically, in the mind's eye of a lot of flat earthers. It doesn't alter our argumentation. And when we view it from the counterpart, the opposite to our point of view, our arguments are being countered by our opponent, we will often criticise other flat earthers for only looking at the person that's putting the argument forward, rather than the argument itself. A glorified ad hom. So when we are personally attacked, for whatever reason, normally because we're exposing a grift, but we won't get into that today, we'd hope that people would assess us on our arguments. Do the arguments hold? That is to say, the conclusive statement of fact when it comes to Earth's measurements. Put into brackets, arguments, as maybe described by some. They're not arguments, though. Hopefully that's been enough lead-in for people to tally off the back of that, and I can rest my mouth for a few minutes.
Yeah, because the starting position for everyone is that we measure the Earth flat. That's where the globers have to begin, because they're using angle measurements with respect to the surface. So it starts with a flat Earth, and then when they want to argue it, they use fallacious logic. And what this show has really done well is to show how all of their arguments are dependent upon fallacious reasoning to come to their conclusion.
Yeah, and within those fallacies, they've still got to utilise measurements at some stage of a flat Earth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They'll always use them. They must. But it's like you have the fact in place, and everything you would make your argument with is built upon those facts. The Earth is flat is just a fact. It's not up for debate. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm trying to get across to people. So, what I yearned for. Oh, why doesn't that give me a chat feed? Give me a second. That's slightly irritating. I wasn't expecting that when I pressed that button. Things aren't going my way. I'm not 100% focused. Just want to answer the question. I won't put it up on screen. I think I'll give up a try that. I won't try that again. Us so far says from the chat, is this a new starting time? 9 a.m. CT. No, it is not. We've just had end of UK summertime. So we've gone back an hour. You'll catch up wherever you are in a week or two. And you'll be on the same time as us, relatively speaking, to your original time zone. But for now, if we're an hour ahead, it's because our clocks went back on Sunday. That's all that is. Happens twice a year. To confuse us all about the time zones that prove a flat Earth. There we go. Anyway, yeah, so no, this is not the starting time. Go ahead.
That's an example of it, right? With time zones. You could use time zones to show someone how the Earth is not a globe. That's a debate. If you're going to have a debate with someone, you could use that, right? But the measurements of those time zones require a flat plane to begin with. So it's kind of one step past the point where you could have stopped the debate.
Yeah, we've whistled past the graveyard for 10 years because the system that we're in flat Earth discussion topic terms, has led us to a place where we start arguing on how the ball doesn't work. You're still arguing about a ball and whether or not it does or doesn't work. And if it doesn't work, there's a reason why it doesn't work that you just haven't explored yet and haven't had explained to you yet. So you never win. You don't attack something for what it is based on what it isn't. I'm not going to start saying, it's flat because it's not a unicorn. Hey, Chocolate.
Well, a lot of times.
Good morning.
It is now you've joined, because it's at the point where there's enough people on the panel for me to shut my chops.
Back to what we were just talking about, though, the Coriolis effect argument nonsense that is in this topic is a good example of it. As long as you're arguing that the Earth and the atmosphere are moving together as one, or the Earth and the atmosphere are two separate reference frames, and you're just caught between those two positions, then you'll never get out of that argument. You'll be locked into that. And that's kind of what they want. As long as we're begging the question of this, then it's still this.
Yeah. Whereas you come to Flat Earth debate, for all of those who might be hesitant to share the show, and they go, I wonder where they're going to go with this. Are they going to talk, as they have done in the past, about how a non-inertial turning reference frame would induce a 15 degrees an hour drift in a plane that would take a shortened flight time from Charlotte to North Carolina? Au contraire. In 2024, we say, axis. I'll just put it to John. Axis, you say, John?
And yeah, how are you going to measure this axis in respect of what plane of reference?
Oh, a flat Earth plane of reference. That's what it'll be in respect to. We've been whistling past the graveyard for 10 years, haven't we? Oh, yeah, you just use a bit of my flat Earth to make your assertion that we've got an axis to put a ball around. You're like, well, no. Where are you getting this axis from? The axis will be with respect to a flat plane. That's how you describe non-inertial and inertial frames of reference, if you're going to call a Coriolis argument into effect or not effect, depending on who you're arguing with and how they're arguing it. Now, you're going to need a flat Earth for that. What's that? Prove we're not spinning? Now, I don't need to prove non-positive claims. It's your burden. And I know it fails miserably. And at the point that it fails, you'll tell me my reference frames have failed. Meanwhile, if you're going to describe an axis, it will be with respect to a flat plane. Like everything. It all has its genesis in a flat plane assertion in the first instance. Axis, you say? You'll need a flat Earth for that.
Right. Even their concept of space is directly connected to a flat plane because they use the celestial sphere diagram to infer infinite space for their stars to occupy. Well, that's still with respect to a flat plane. They call it the celestial plane.
All of their expanded universe planes, the asymptotically flat plane, also, whenever they diagrammatically represent an orbital motion, that is to say, they show you the sun, they show you the Earth, and maybe a couple of other planets, yeah? When they show you that system, it's always with respect to the midpoint of the ball on a flat plane. That's how it functions. It can't function any other way. It's described and mathematicized into existence in the mind's eye of the people who believe that mathematical description of the stars with out-of-the-box heliocentric thinking as being their reality. Now, when they do so, they don't recognize that the system itself works functionally from the center of hell. Yeah? That's how it is described, always. Now, once you see that, you can't unsee it. Now, that's a combination of you explaining the asymptotically flat plane and celestial navigation in terms of how you'll plot it with the Haversine conversion to create a PZX triangle. You need to be in the center of hell. Same for orbital motion. You need to be in the center of hell to describe those motions. Yeah? Why? Well, because you're only creating the ball with respect to the perspective view of two flat planes, the sky and the ground. Now, with that information, you can create a ball to use an extension of Ptolemaic thinking with Copernicus and Huygens and Kepler. And you can create this flat plane with a ball moving around the sun. But you're going to describe it from the center point. Always needs a flat plane. And you can't unsee that in the diagrams when you start to recognize that. This diagram has a flat plane at the heart of it. To describe it is necessitated. Earth is flat. And because of the descriptions of this heliocentric worldview, paradigm, whatever you want to call it, mathematicization, if that's a word, of the skies, flat plane, and our flat plane, you will always see this center point being utilized in the end result. The description has come from a flat plane, so it's going to be necessitated somewhere in the visual description. And it's you in the middle of hell, always, without exception.
Right. Well, the interesting thing about it is with their planets. I'm doing the hooks with my fingers when I say planets. They're when they calculate things with respect to them, they'll imagine that they're in the center point there. The problem comes is when you do a measurement, your reference must be something you experience. You know, it has to be tied to one of your five senses. What sense are you using in hell?
You're not. It's a transposition of the angle measurement that is only acquirable with respect to a flat plane of reference that's created a model to put you in a position where you're necessitated to be in hell.
John, you're just using your hell sense. Duh.
Yeah, we're not in hell, and the only reason we put ourselves there is because there's a mathematical... I hate using the word model, but in the mind's eye of the person listening to this, it's a model. It isn't. It's maths. And then
Diagram.
yeah, well, it's not. It's Keplerian mathematics, isn't it?
Well, those mathematics all utilize a flat plane as well.
Yeah.
Like, remember, we're just talking about angular relationships with respect to the Earth we're standing on.
Yeah, as opposed to in, which is the end result when you turn it into a heliocentric model. You're inside it on a flat plane, rather than on the ball that's created with the PZX triangles. No, you're not on that ball. You're in it.
And just to conclude this, guys, in my opinion, this is one of the most powerful arguments that we got when I remember when John said, like, to describe vertical elevation, horizontal plane of reference is required. It struck so deep with me, man, like, because For years before that, guys, you can ask Sasha or Elvis or one of my buddies. I've been showing these guys elevation profile of this app, cycling app, right? Where it shows like hills and everything in reference to horizontal. And for years I've been telling them, like, yo guys, look at this, like you can find this on Google. Elevation profiles are everywhere, right? But I just didn't know how to verbalize it. You know what I mean? Like I was telling them, like, you see the horizontal, everything, all vertical, all changes in elevation is a reference to this, right? So when John came out with the concise statement to describe vertical or elevation, height, horizontal plane of reference is required, it struck so deep with me, man. I still think it's one of the most powerful arguments for our side.
Yeah.
But yeah, elevation
Get
profile
it.
is everywhere. Every app that measures, like Google app, Strava, there's a lot of apps for running, cycling. They all display elevation profiles. And it's so simple to get.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Elevation
and it
profiles.
is. But
Go ahead.
oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. By far, I'd prefer you did.
Oh, I was just going to say. I was just going to say that the thing is about it's not an argument. It's not a point of contention that you can argue over, because the minute you try to, you throw out the globe Earth with it too. You know what I mean?
Yes, you're caught between a rock and a hard place. If you throw out any measurements, which are all flat, then you decry the measurement that any process is going to start with. So you're at zero. You can't go anywhere. If you say, no, I'm going to deny this elevation angle measurement to Polaris, for instance. Okay, so you deny latitude. Well, you're denying latitude full stop. That means you don't have latitude on a ball. So you don't have anything. Okay, well, I accept the flat Earth elevation angle measurement to Polaris forming latitude. Okay, will you accept Earth is flat then? No, I'm going to wrap that flat Earth measurement that I accept around a ball. But I don't accept that Earth is flat. We've just measured it that way. You either toss out the measurement that you accept and have performed with respect to a flat Earth, and then move forward with that flat Earth measurement to create a ball to believe in, and decry the measurement that created it. Well, that's silly. You just accept that Earth is measured flat if you know how the ball's created. Once you know how the genesis of the ball was created with a measurement of a flat Earth, there's nowhere else to go. So what I want to distill in my audience is a confidence. So there's like 80 odd people watching, right? Shout out to Duncan McLeod. I'm really sorry I can't put your super chat up. There's something gone twirly with my stream deck, I think. Anyway, I'll read it out though. Shout out to Duncan McLeod for the super chat. He says, caught between a plane and a hard place. Yeah, absolutely correct. You can either accept the plane that is measured to form the globe, or deny the plane, and then you can't make a globe with it. Thanks for the super chat. But yeah, I want to distill some confidence into the audience, which is to say, when they hit the share button and give it to their next of kin or their friend and say, this is what I want you to listen to understand flat Earth, they won't be presented with, you know, it's a flat Earth because go and look at the curve calculator. It says you should see the horizon at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and there are actual observations out there on the internet that are further than that. You're like, who cares? If you knew that that calculation, for example, has a flat Earth in it, measured surface level, then you wouldn't be talking about how that calculation fails when compared to observations. The very existence of the calculation relied on a flat Earth measurement. So if you know Earth's measured flat, and you know that that's all we talk about, then you can share with confidence. You can smash the share button and go, you'll find out why Earth's flat here. You won't be hearing about our speculation about X, Y, and Z. Only stone cold facts that leave you in no doubt about how Earth is actually functionally dealt with, measured, mapped, charted, travelled upon, flown over, built on. All of these processes result in flat maps, flat charts, flat travel, flat building processes. All of it. Now, that hasn't changed suddenly. It's always been that way. So I find that people don't like change. It scares them. People are creatures of habit. Whatever's made them successful in the past, they will repeat. Now, if you try and interrupt that by saying, actually, you need to readdress your cognition in terms of how Earth functions, what you think is functionally operating as... No. Don't start telling them how it's not operating as a ball. Because that just leaves them with the idea of how it's not operating as a ball, so why is that the case? No, it's just you telling me it's not working correctly as a ball. Start telling people how Earth always was and always will be flat. That's how you deal with it. Anybody who's held a map knows this. Anybody who's taken a flight knows it already. And nothing will change when they find this information out. So there's always that fear that if you share a flat Earth video with your next man, he's going to say, you're an idiot when he listens to it. Because he's going to hear stuff about ice walls and domes and ether and speculation. And you're like, if I share that with next man, they're going to think I'm a nutter. Whereas if they come across us after you're smashing that share button, and they come on, listen to the show for 5 minutes, and we talk about how Earth is functionally measured flat, that will have a dramatic impact that doesn't leave a bitter taste in the mouth of the person that's listening to it. Because there's things that we'll talk about that are as they are. Functionality of Earth has not changed. I used to describe this as saying Earth didn't unfold. It was always flat to begin with. But when you can show that that's how we're actually dealing with Earth, we being collectively, all of us, we have to. We have no choice. That alleviates the problem of thinking, this is going to scare someone. This is a change. No, they've got a religion, a ball religion. But that, if you show them where their ball religion came from, the flat Earth measurements also, they can choose to continue in a religion they didn't appreciate they had, if they want to. Everyone's entitled to their belief. But if they have a belief that is backed by their understanding of Earth measurements, flat, then that's a different story. Their choice may be different. But you don't have to influence that choice with speculation and belief. Just influence it with fact and measurement. Go ahead.
Well, think about it this way. If you're just walking down the street and someone comes up to you out of nowhere, this is for the evangelists who want to tell other people, would you feel weird if they came up to you and started making an argument against something you believed? It would be kind of weird to you, like speaking from that. But if someone just come up and made a statement of fact, it would be a lot easier to deal with.
I think so. Statement of fact rather than a speculation. And we're left in an arena in flat Earth today where we're presented with arguments that open the door to speculation about the globe. Now, if you're just speculating about whether the globe functions correctly in its descriptive premise that's being offered in argumentation, then that's all you'll do. You'll just argue about a globe all day. And there is no argument. I said this in the pre-show and maybe at the beginning of the live show. We're heavily, heavily censored, hence me pushing the idea of promoting this show with confidence. Because you can. Like I say, next man will hear it and not go back to you and say, these idiots say elevation angles are measured off a flat Earth. Because if he does, you'll say, yeah, well, they are. As opposed to, these idiots say that there's an Ethereum background medium that's got a potential for free energy. Are you a numpty? You sound crazy. Are you really part of this cult? Because we already know it's a ball. Again, if they come here and they hear us talking about how heliocentrism necessitates flat Earth measurements and the details therein, what are they going to do? Argue. If they hear that latitude is a flat Earth measurement, it's an angle measurement to Polaris off a flat plane, they go, no, it's on my ball here, it's on my globe. Yeah, how's it measured? No, you're a numpty, you're a crazy conspirator. No. We're talking about how Polaris is measured for latitude. I'm talking about conspiracies. I'm not talking about ice walls and domes. Am I? I'm talking about basic navigation. Knowing your latitude and how you measure it. Hardly contentious. What's that? You just find it contentious? Well, that's you finding it contentious. This isn't my bag. It's not my problem. But latitude's measured flat. For your globe or for the reality of the world that we measured to get it, it's measured flat. Now, sharing this show and giving that sort of information to people is what I yearned for 10 years ago. I really wanted to find a show like this. Basically created the show I wanted 10 years ago when I first came across this subject. So I didn't have to muck around with ice walls and domes. But it didn't exist. Now it does. Share the show. Smash that share button if you've not done so already. Another shout out to Sasha, Unitox Femu. Says, homework. Make elevation profiles of your home country. Go into Google Earth. I don't know if it's still available on the basic version. At some stages, this has been available on Google Earth on the basic version rather than the pro version. You can go to something called elevation profile. You can draw a line across any given part of land. I've done it for the entirety of the known surface of the flat Earth we dwell atop. And you can draw out a great big graph with respect to sea level to show how high or low the land across that given area is. Now, how does an elevation profile work? Well, it describes how high or low the ground is with respect to sea level. So when you draw out an elevation profile, it'll just show you how high or low mountains are with respect to a flat Earth. Because that's what Earth is. That's how it's measured, and that's how it's presented in Google Earth or any other software that deals with measurements of Earth. It's flat. Thank you for the super chat, Unitox Femi.
And there's actually people in this topic who take the topology to be the Earth, because the topology is part of the surface of Earth, right? But they'll try to confuse topology with the overall baseline from which Earth is measured. So that happens in this topic as well. That's not helpful at all in this discussion, but people interject it for some reason.
Can you repeat all that? I was off in La La Land. Say all that again.
It was a warning to anyone who is listening, and it's their first time here. There is a group of flat earthers within this topic who will try to confuse topology with the overall Earth, so that they'll say that height is just a point on a vertical datum. It has, nothing to do with the ground, But what they're doing is they're confusing the topology with the baseline that the topology is measured from. The baseline, which is held across the entirety of Earth, that's all flat.
Absolutely. And you can demonstrate that just by doing a basic elevation profile in Google Earth across any territory. So Sasha's suggestion from the super chat is just do it on your own country. Go to your country, draw out a line across it, bring up an elevation profile, and see how flat your territory is with respect to a flat plane of reference. That'd be sea level. That's how things are referenced and measured. That's what elevation is. That's how height works. You've got to have a flat Earth to describe height. If the surface level's falling away from you, you wouldn't have a reference to describe any heights any time ever. You can't describe height on a ball. You have no up on a ball. Now, they'll openly disclaim that to you. But it simultaneously violates all principles of Earth measurement. So you're screwed if you think you're on a curving surface derived from flat Earth measurements in the first instance.
Yeah, what they'll say is up is not an objective direction. And that is partially true because within your, because you're talking about first person as orthographic. In orthographic, up is definitely with respect to the horizontal plane of reference that the observer is standing on. But when you talk about up as in how you perceive it, that's why the word level versus horizontal exists, because level can appear not to be horizontal to someone who has their head turned, right? If I'm laying on my side and I look out at a level line, it looks like it's vertical to me. So our subjective experience and what's actually happening can seem to diverge if you don't understand that.
Yeah, words have to be defined quite carefully when you actually want to engage in a process. So if you're trying to achieve an outcome, then you've got to be hyper specific with what you want. Otherwise, people might misunderstand. In hyper specific terms, Earth is flat.
Yes.
Go on, John.
There's no valid argument against it. Like anything that you go down, and we've been down them all that I know of, you first have to accept it's flat and then argue a point to try to deny your original acceptance, which is just you're chasing your own tail after that.
So yeah, hopefully a few of you have now smashed the share button. I've been away for a few days. Has anything happened in the time that I've been dosed up with painkillers?
I thought Neil was going to fill us in on that, but Neil has decided not to speak.
For the audience's
Fair enough.
benefit, or for when this goes out at a later date, for the last, I don't know, week maybe, I can't lose track of time, I've just been in horrendous pain with toothache and hemorrhaging money at dentists and pharmacists, which is terrible because if you're not working on YouTube, or if I'm not working, I can only speak for myself, it means that the knife edge I survive on financially goes down and you go, oh no, I've got to get back to work. So at the moment, if you're wondering why I'm slightly incoherent, it's because I'm dosed up on painkillers and in a tremendous amount of pain. But the show must go on, otherwise the mortgage doesn't get paid. So in a way, if you see me as being a bit less passionate about the subject today, that's why. My passion will never actually wane, no matter how much pain I'm in, really. I am deeply passionate about the subject. And partially the reason I wanted to go live today, because when I got up, I bunged on 24/7 Discord, or Flat Earth 24/7, and I just heard people arguing about how the ball doesn't work to prove a flat Earth, and it just riled me. You just think, oh, why am I alive talking about exactly this, talking to the masses that we're censored from, about how Earth is actually functionally dealt with, rather than how it's not a ball, when the ball aspect of our belief system that we used to have, us as flat earthers that is, has no practical use. There's no practical use for being on a ball. You can describe it after the fact. That's after the measuring it flat fact, in terms of your being in hell and moving around suns and things. But again, that has a certain amount of practical application for predictive reasons. But when you actually boil down what you're calling predictions, they're not. They're just better estimations of where the stars will line up in given positions and matching them with our calendar. Now, the fact that we've got this arbitrary construct of a calendar in the first place to have to match it up, rather than just obeying where the stars are, is a construct of people that have wanted to track and delineate time in a structured manner that we've arbitrarily come up with. But for the fact that we have these arbitrary constructs, we wouldn't have any issues. We could just be using the stars as a calendar, rather than trying to match it up with some human-made idea that doesn't work correctly. And therefore, if you've got a day, January the 7th, and you say, well, the next January the 7th will be everything in the sky clock moved on by 100% to its original point, if it's in a cyclical fashion. But that doesn't quite work. We don't have single systems in the sky, so you can't match it up with a single calendar. Now, while that might be unfortunate for those who want to track things, it doesn't mean that the system that's mathematically invented to square that circle creates a circle we're standing on. It doesn't mean that at all. We've always had religious beliefs imposed upon us to keep us under control throughout history. The history that we're presented with, at the very least. So heliocentrism as a religion is no different. Oh, by the way, if you do take pity on me, as I've been hemorrhaging cash on doctors and not doctors, dentists, although they are doctors, hills and sitting in chairs going, ow! Then there's a PayPal link below. Hopefully you can cash me up to get better. There are people who will take PT, I bloody hope so anyway. It does sting when you lose money on YouTube revenue just from not being live every single day. Shouldn't be that tight a knife rope, or whatever the analogy is, that type of tight rope, financially speaking. But that said, in years gone by, people have always backed me up and supported me financially when things like this happen. And I know why I'm getting ill from things. It's because I'm run down. I keep saying, yeah, I can burn the candle at both ends and control it. You're like, yeah, you can, until you get sick. And then, no, you just can't do this much stuff. I think I'll put a hiatus on Omi videos temporarily, just until the book's done. Just an extra thing that, while it's nice and it does generate more views, like, I'm only doing that as a pushback of seeing a slight decline in the views, and you go, okay, there's a slight decline, I've got to do something extra, let's do Omi videos. So I've done that, and that's worked nicely. But now I'm sick, so like, I can't add this extra functionality. I'll have to wait till the book's done, then get back into Omi videos, I feel. Another shout out to Unitox Femu. January 7 is Orthodox Christmas. Super chat. Yeah, the heliocentric model's merely there as a better way of predicting when certain stars will be in alignment, so they match historic events. That's it. Well, when they don't match, you start to alter the systems that you've created to better predict when they'll be in certain positions. And when certain motions don't match other motions, because they're on a separate path, you try and square that circle. You try and figure out why, and create a single unified system that says, this is my comparative clock on the ground that matches the sky. You're like, well, so far not so good. There's always fault in these sky clocks. They're never perfect. The best we've got so far, if you just boil it down to what it is heliocentrism. Now, it's a shame that the best we've got in terms of tracking where the stars will be in certain positions has turned into a bleeding worldview where we're standing on/in a globe created from measurements of a flat plane. It's a weird time to live.
Strange how they think that gets them out of anything standing inside a globe on a equatorial plane that's horizontal, where they're going to be taking the elevation angle measurements from anyway. There's nothing curved about that.
No. Exactly. How can we promote the show to more people? That's what I want to know. How can we get what we do in the hands of more people as either a tool that they want to bash globers over the head with / convert people as a flat earth evangelist, which is, obviously perfectly sufficient training offered here to do that if you do want to do that. Or just know that Earth's flat and get on with your day. Not feel that you're in a need to move forward into this rabbit hole. How can we get this under more people's noses? What we do daily. Except if I've got to take.
Maybe if there was a book, Nathan, we could buy them a book.
Hopefully we'll have that by Christmas.
I just had no imagination. I would just say, quick, hit the center of the earth button.
Well, I can't unsee it now. I shared a video with Brian. I can't remember what it was. Some circle that had been squared within Keplerian motion. I can't remember what it was. Someone had done some maths for Keplerian motion, right? And said, we figured something out that didn't quite work properly. And I said to Brian, as soon as I saw this, they diagrammatically represented the motion that they were showing with the maths. And it's from the centre of hell. Like on screen now, right? You've got the celestial equator and the point for the angle at 40 degrees from hell. Now, whenever they show you any orbital motion, that's the plane that it will move around. So it's always going to be described from the centre point. You're always in hell when you're looking at any Keplerian motion. Weird. You can't unsee it once you know it. the whole thing's really quite scary when you think that the church props this up and teaches it to us in the schools, yet they're describing a worldview that has you in hell. Isn't that weird?
It's like that picture there, though. We noticed that now straight away. It's the equator, the equatorial plane, and it's a horizontal baseline for the elevation angles. We can see that, but maybe, I don't know, 5-6 years ago looking at that, or somebody who's just looking at that will think, well, oh, it must be right. The globe's there and that's how it's working. They don't actually see the wood for the trees, do they? They don't see the problem, or they don't see what they're seeing. It's just like, I can't, that now we can see it. It's like what you say though, Nathan. It's like we said the other day. Eratosthenes, how many times was we not noticing that? He was measuring angles and describing angle measurements to get the so-called globe 2,000 years ago. And Alberuni measuring elevation angles to get the heights of mountains. It's just all there. That's all they're telling us. It's flat and that's how it's measured. Even when they put you in the center of that globe, they've still got a horizontal baseline for the elevation angle, which they need. Crazy.
Divergent Droid from chat says, I'd like to see places put FED on the big screens. Like in a sports bar, I think he means. Something similar. Yeah, he could probably get away with that, right? In a loud bar with subtitles with the closed captions underneath. Because I've set this show so that it renders slightly delayed. So it's got enough time to automatically put the closed captions as the show goes out live. So can you imagine you're sat in a sports bar and you're listening to some music and then you're distracted by the screen, like you'd be watching the ball game, and you start reading the closed captions. It's saying, yeah, well, of course Earth's measured flat. We take elevation angle measurements with respect to a horizontal plane of reference. That's how the globe was created. You read that while you're sat in a bar. You'd be like, what?
So Globers are right when they say nothing changes, right? You still got to go to work the next day. They're right, because we still experience the Earth the way we experience it. We still measure it flat, right?
Yeah, I think we should lean into that. People are scared of change. If people's, the ones that are indifferent when you say, yeah, Earth's flat, and they go like, yeah, so what? What changes? Still got to go to work tomorrow. If you could turn around and say, nothing changes, it's measured flat, always was, always will be, that's how it's functioned forever, then suddenly they don't have to think about, well, I've got to now get into this conspiracy rabbit hole. No, you don't have to get into anything. Nothing changes. It always was flat, but now you know it. Now when you use a map next, or when you travel anywhere or fly anywhere or go on a boat or build something, you'll recognise the flat earth that's beneath your feet that you're referencing. Because that's how it is functionally working, present tense. Now, it always was and always will be flat. So yeah, what difference does it make? Well, not a lot.
What changes is they don't have a blind belief anymore about the things that make no sense, and you have a clear understanding of how things function in reality and how the Earth is measured. That's the only thing that changes.
Well, yeah, exactly. All that may change is their adherence to their belief in the world being a globe. Well, you had a belief in it being a globe. Well, that belief came from those measurements also, but you can now, what will change? Maybe your belief in religious stuff that you didn't know you were believing in until I told you that Earth was measured flat.
We've seen it on the OMI TV, Nathan. I think they'd be prepared to lose the globe, but they don't want to lose space, do they? They seem like really, you've seen them get more irate about space than the shape of the Earth, don't they? I mean, they're obsessed with it. So if the globe goes, the space goes, and they don't want to lose space travel and space exploration. They can't afford to lose that.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of the things I discussed in my journey through Flat Earth was my, not depression, but disappointment in the relinquishment of space. Now, all right, it's quite bleak when you actually reflect on it. Space, that is, very bleak. Endless voids of nothingness. But you've invested in that paradigm, and you've kind of conceptualized how that is the world and how that is the universe and how vast it all is, and your suspension of disbelief at movies has that layer that has to be added to it. It's like I can't watch what was my favourite show anymore, Red Dwarf, from when I was a kid. I used to love it, absolutely love it. I watched it back to back on VHS cassette over and over and over and over again, to the point where I knew every word of every line of every script on every show. And now it's just, no, I can't suspend disbelief that far anymore. So that means there's quite a lot of things that, as I was describing in the pre-show, people have invested in, not financially, mentally, and they don't want to let them go. They're too heavily invested.
You have to think of as of it's like EastEnders. Think of your Star Wars or Star Trek as EastEnders. It works then.
Yeah, lots of people have told me that. So I remember a guy called Amir in the first year of coming to the subject was talking about the latest Star Wars video game. He was like, no, I can suspend disbelief and get into this video game. I'm happy. I know it's not real and that there is no comparison for me to experience or for Luke to experience that I play with in the game, but it doesn't matter. I'm still enjoying the game. I'm like, I can't do that anymore. I just can't. It's beyond me to suspend disbelief that extra layer when we're bracing against it on a literally daily basis.
Yeah, but I enjoy a good fantasy film. Like anything that involves Narnia. They're your favourite. If that was a film, you watch it, it's fantasy. It's just stored in your imagination. So you just treat it the same way.
Could you rewatch Interstellar?
I did go through a process of one of my favorite shows was Star Trek, and I couldn't watch it for a little while, but then I thought, oh, I enjoy it too much. Although you see so many things that trigger you while you're watching it. But
Exactly. I know that the majority of Red Dwarf's based on a brief history of time. They read it to create the concepts of the show. So, like, every time there's an aspect of that right in your face, normally a major part of the plot, it just makes my toes curl.
Yeah, but when you see that most of life is like that about so many different subjects, it doesn't matter anymore, does it?
Yeah, I know. I can detach myself from it when it comes up from a kid's. I can just be indifferent to it. I'm like, they're in that world. Whenever we're sat having a lesson about something specific and it comes up, I'll just carry on regardless of the fact that I don't believe in it. It's like, this is part of that lesson. This is part of that cartoon. So I don't sit here all day going, that's not true. That's not true. Because I'd drive them nuts. So, like, yeah, they're entirely saturated with globe Earth information. Now, that's apparent to me. I can talk about it now with you and an audience. But once it becomes apparent to you, you realise how saturated we were, past tense, with globe Earth information. Not information, sorry. Like visualizations and representations. We're just completely saturated. They're everywhere, always.
Maybe, like when you go to YouTube and it says you do flat Earth and it comes up, this is an archaic concept, blah, 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 and there's like a warning. Maybe they should have that on all other programs. This is a fantasy concept, and we must warn you that it's not necessarily based on reality.
Maybe in 100 years that will be the case. Old literature will come with a warning. This was written from a heliocentric point of view. No, don't just put it down. There's still useful stuff in there. Dave Lister's still funny.
Yeah, precisely. But I do get more of a comedy value from it now. Like even EastEnders, it's comedy to me.
I didn't know. Do you still watch TV then, obviously?
There are a few select programs that my other half forces me to watch sometimes.
Oh, it's just garbage. I don't watch TV at all. Closest we come is my wife occasionally watches Netflix, which has annoyed me greatly because they've gotten rid of the surround sound that worked perfectly until 6 months ago. And then they've got rid of it and decided that they want to charge you for a crappier service for about 10 quid a month on top of the... You're like, why? It worked. It was working perfectly. Now I just get stereo. You're like, oh, you bastards. Anyway, enough moaning about Netflix.
Yeah, but just stick with the comedy value. As I say, my missus thinks that I'm not very what's the word?
Tolerant.
Well, no, I just laugh at the when she wants to burst out in tears, I'll be creased up laughing. So
In what context? As in, you're watching some spacey disaster and you just find it funny.
yeah. If they're trying to put some kind of a message through, I just think it's funny, you know.
Yeah. Even worse is when you start in all of the Avengers movie. They've got this Marvel generally, right? They've got loads of time dilation and multiple parallel universe crap that's riddled throughout it. And to me, it's no different to Globe stuff. It's all based in the same bullshit, isn't it? So when you see this stuff, you're like, oh, it just makes me roll my eyes. It's brainwashing us.
Yeah, but
What's so painful about taking away space?
What's painful about taking it away? It's because that's the world that you lived in. Vast world that you lived in.
So just the size?
The allegory of the cave, innit?
Oh yeah, that's what I'm gonna definitely miss. What's purported to me to be the harshest environment I could ever imagine, that I'll never visit. But yeah, I'm supposed to miss that. It can miss me with that.
What is it? The possibilities of other life forms? Really?
Yeah, contextually, there's a lot of potential.
Yeah. See how the heliocentric ball-tard dovetails with evolution? Evolution is right at its base.
Yep.
Almost like it was planned that way.
It's all part of the same stem of religious rhetoric, right? Evolution's a follow-on from heliocentrism when it's put as a worldview, as opposed to just a better predictive method for knowing when the stars are going to be in certain places.
I don't know about predictive methods.
I can't think of a better word.
for that.
Logical.
Take it?
I can't think of a better word. When you talk about 1 minute past 12 coming 1 minute after midnight, it's not prediction, is it? When I say, well, it's going to be a 1 minute past circumstance in 60 seconds, you watch. Mark my words. I'm Nostradamus.
We need one word. I think you can't do it. It's repetitive cycles.
Yeah, it's witnessing and describing repetitive cycles. Yeah, that's all heliocentrism is. A better methodology for describing repetitive cycles, but it's trying to unify them into a single system. And they're not, it's not a single system, is it?
what about forecasting? Does that work?
Nah.
No.
Forecasting is like with weather when it's got an element of unpredictability. There's no
An
pattern
element.
to it.
There's thousands of elements of unpredictability.
Yeah.
Well, I can forecast in 1 minute after 12 o'clock. It'll be 12:01.
Yeah, but that's not the weather. We're talking two different things.
Yeah, I said the word forecast.
Yeah, don't like forecast. It's repetitive cycles. It's recognizing patterns. We're good at that.
Yeah.
Cyclical.
Yeah.
We're trying to get them to all function as one spirograph, like so you
I'll
can
be
draw
back.
the whole thing out in one. And it's like, no, we've got multiple things going on at once.
Yeah, but spirograph was very clever because that was cyclical. If you just kept going with it.
Yeah, but if you try and get that idea into your head that you've got this really pretty pattern that's nice and uniform, well, if you've got a completely different shaped spirograph sat on top of it, you're like, these two things are never going to tally nicely with each other. They're different.
Eventually they do, don't they?
Nah, eventually you end up with nonsense like heliocentrism to try and describe it.
Oh, so what you say, doing one on top of the other. I thought when you get those spirographs with the one in the middle, the double ring one.
Yeah, that's what heliocentrism is attempting to do, put more cogs in.
Yeah,
Same
but even the rotation of the stars is like that, where there's different cycles, isn't there? There's the 18-year cycle, there's other cycles.
But that infers that all of these mechanics are linked together and have a bearing on each other. Well, that isn't necessarily the case, is it? They're working in different ways. The sun, the moon, the stars, epicycles as they were described, or retrograde motion as it's now described. The attempts to describe these things have resulted in heliocentrism. But that's an attempt to try and turn the whole system into one big spirograph with lots more cogs in it to try and explain these cogs and how they function. It's like, no, well, if you've got a completely different, totally different manufacturer of spirograph, the cogs don't even work. One's plastic and one's wood. You know, these two systems are independent of one another, but they want one system to match up with the calendar.
Right. Okay. Yeah. See where you're going.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we can track the patterns. I'm sure we can. I'm sure that's within our capabilities. But it's not as simple as creating a unified... And they want that. They want a one system to describe it all.
Oh, we do, because we use that concept called time, don't we? Time, days, months, years, millennia, centuries.
Yeah, and which is that reference to? Just the sun? Well, no, that's where the problems begin, isn't it? You try and divide up that into a pattern, and yeah, or you can do that on its own, alone, independent of other things. But when you try and tie it to all the other things, you end up with you on a ball in hell, moving around an asymptotically flat plane in an elliptical motion with scales from men that have invented that. You end up all sorts of la la land.
That's the imagination for you. It's cool.
Yeah, it is definitely the imagination. You know, they had to think outside of the box to come up with that. Now we're under the misapprehension we're standing on that out of the box thinking.
I've often thought about that, the way we seem to demand that we have answers for everything, or we've got to explain something some way or other. Otherwise, we feel inferior.
And we feel especially inferior if we think we've got an explanation from it and then it's not right. We'll brace against that in a heartbeat.
And that's just being triggered because what
Prideful.
you believe.
Back to the heavy investment, it's pride.
Well, people get triggered, but the whole idea of what I've said before about spells, it doesn't have to be rhyme nor reason to why they believe something. They just do. And as you say, they become invested in it, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah.
But there is a reason people believe in being on a ball, right? You were indoctrinated with that. Because if you weren't, no one would believe that.
I would say you were enchanted by that, or chanted at to believe it. Repetitive nature of chanting over and over again is what puts ideas in people's heads.
Yeah, you got to put the light absolutely everywhere, constantly, always, so it's repeated in your mind's eye all the time. Pictures of the globe, pictures of space, space stories, space movies, space books, space comics, space characters, space wars, threats from space, comets, disasters, former disasters in history that have been caused by space.
So many layers.
And it's all space related, isn't it? Space, 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 space.
Which is why it's so hard to give up on, because if you believe in one element, one of those layers, then you can't lose the main subject, can you?
Indeed.
So maybe that's why it's so hard to let go of.
Well, hopefully a few people will smash the share button and a few people today will learn that Earth is measured flat. Smash that share button if you've not done so already. If you take pity on me for the tremendous amount of pain I'm in, please smash the PayPal link in the info box below this video. But with that, I'm going to say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you who smashed the super chat. It looks like someone smashed the super chat as we're going in the outro. Us so far, AI always has to resort to FE. Will your new book be AI proof? I predict your book will be the new gold standard in FE community. Can't wait. It will be the gold standard in the FE community. The standard is exceptionally high, and I hope everyone buys it. So yeah, please buy the book. But again, if you're watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So another massive thank you to all of you, including us so far, for smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, taking pity on me and my toothache, and hit me up on PayPal and Ko-Fi, Patreon, all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.